Hello, welcome back everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch. And don't be shy, come on back in for those of you outside. Time now for our afternoon keynote, which will be a Q&A between myself and CBS Interactive SVP and GM of Entertainment, Marc DeBevoise. As his title implies, Marc oversees CBS Interactive's entertainment division. He joined CBS from Liberty Media's premium subscription channel Starz, where he was responsible for the company's overall digital strategy and the digital initiative supporting its film, television, and digital original content properties. So please welcome to the stage, Marc DeBevoise. I hope I said that right. Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Marc.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So if you could just start by giving us an overview of CBS Interactive, and then what specifically your responsibilities are inside the company.
Sure. Well, CBS Interactive, we like to say, is the largest premium content provider and network online. And I run the Interactive Entertainment Division, which encompasses all the entertainment properties. I like to do it by negating the things I don't run, which is news and sports and international, but everything that's entertainment-based. So that's CBS.com, TV.com, and a company we bought recently called Clicker, which we're merging TV.com and Clicker together, and one of our smaller sites, but a really cool site in Chow.com, which is a food-based site. So also run all the distribution of our entertainment content out into the rest of the internet, which is basically encompassed by the CBS Audience Network, where we take all of our video content from multiple brands, including the CNET brand that we own, and GameSpot, and a number of other brands, and distribute it out through a number of third-party sites on the web.
Okay, great. So on its site, CBS Interactive claims 211 million uniques.
I think that's dated.
Is it? It's dated? Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's bigger. It's way bigger.
It's way bigger. Great. So how many uniques are spread across the properties that you oversee?
Sure. So CBS Interactive as a whole, I think the ComScore number is somewhere in the 270, 280 million range. Our internal numbers are well over 300. That encompasses also a large international operation out of China, and everything we have around the globe, and includes CNET, which is a monster site. But the stuff that I oversee is essentially, in CBS.com is around, depending on the month, around 15 to 20 million uniques coming to our core site there. The CBS Audience Network crosses, we like to say, an unduplicated audience of 140 million uniques. That doesn't mean 140 million uniques are watching it, but at least crosses sites that touch that much. Typical unique viewers on a monthly basis, somewhere in that 15 to 20 million range as well, for CBS Audience Network. TV.com, Clicker is sort of in the 10 million-ish plus range. And Chow and the sort of subsite of Chow Hound, which is the discussion boards around that site, are in the 5 to 7 million range on a monthly basis. So somebody's got to do that math in their head, because I couldn't do it right here.
Nor could I. But we'll come back to the CBS Audience Network, because sure. I do have more questions about that. But just to broadly talk about CBS and its online presence. So it's the number one. It's CBS is the undisputed number one in television, right?
Yes.
What would you say is its identity on the web? What is its footprint?
Sure. Well, look, uniquely about us on air, I mean, this is not only are we number one, but it's it's getting a little, I don't want to say ridiculous, but it's the first time in history that any network's had 20 of the top 30 shows at one time. Never happened before. So obviously monstrous performance on air, and just tremendous content that we have to work with online. I'd say we're the same online. We've been the number one network site for 34 consecutive months or something like that, and are leading by a decent margin in terms of uniques. Although what it begs the question is that's great, but you didn't do Hulu, and the other three guys did Hulu, and therefore that's why they don't have as many uniques, and why you do. But I counter that with a little back-of-the-envelope math, which certainly not an official calc or stat that we put out there, but if you think about the size of Hulu in the sort of 30 million unique-ish range, and you add the uniques of the three other broadcast sites, Fox, ABC, and NBC, and you divide that by 3, which is the number of other networks, our audience is actually bigger than that number, right? So our 15 to 20 million it's around the same. It's the last couple months has been a little bigger because we've had some great performance. So what that tells me is that our distribution strategy in the CBS Audience Network and our uniques on CBS.com has worked, right? We're still holding our own as the #1 audience, and I say that because that back of the envelope math is actually pretty unfair to us. I mean, Hulu doesn't just have 3 content partners; it has like 20. Right, so there's plenty of other content there, and it's not driving that much, more audience on a relative basis. And I would also say that our content, in case you haven't watched it, is targeted at a slightly older demographic than most of the other networks' content. So if you look at Fox and NBC with shows like American Idol or Simpsons, or on NBC, the comedy block, those are targeted at much younger audiences than most content that's on CBS. So those of us on the internet know that it's a younger audience focusing on the internet. So to us, it's almost like an unfair comparison, and we still hold our own, right? So we're still #1. So I'd say, undisputed #1 broadcast network online, #1 television network, probably #1 individual premium content provider, at least in the video side online, in terms of both size, quality, and I think in the depth of content too.
So what are people watching today on CBS's online entertainment properties? What's popular and what's popular on TV versus online?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could probably imagine that, Ashton Kutcher with his pants off works across multiple platforms. He's been, that show's been a great driver. So the stuff that's #1 online, on air is typically pretty high online. You're not going to, sort of diverge that much. But there are some good examples out there of stuff that improves audience over the change in platform. The one I like to use is How I Met Your Mother, which is a show. It's probably in the high teens, probably bordering near the 20th, show for us on air. And when you go to the DVR, for example, right, where again it's a time-shifting audience, a more tech-savvy audience, it shifts to probably in the mid-teens to low teens. And when you go online, it's our #3 show. So there's a show that where a younger audience is obviously attracted to that show. We're going to do better there online, and people have come to actually watch that show online. So some transitions and some not, right? Even Big Brother in the summer is a great performer for us, relative to other shows as it compares. So when you hit that sort of younger demo, it does work a little bit better. But, 2.5 Men still our #1 show on air and our #1 show online. So tough to change too much.
So it's safe to say, it may be obvious that your audience online is much younger than your television audience.
Yeah, no, that's safe. I think our audience on air, I may get this wrong, so maybe don't quote me on this and I'll check it, but I think our average age demo on air is somewhere in the high 50s, and I would imagine that our average person online is certainly well south of that.
Okay. The fall TV season is happening. How has that affected your online offerings? Has that changed anything that you've?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've crushed a couple of records here in the first couple months. And look, I've only been in this job for 4 months, so I'm pretty happy to be beating records in month 3 and 4. But it's really about the programming and the stuff that's driven there. But yeah, I mean, we've beaten some traffic days. We had our 2 largest traffic days the day after the 2.5 Men premiere, and the day after that were both 2 million unique days, and we broke the record for the month at around 20 million uniques for the month of September. We're crushing all kinds of long-form streaming records on our own. We've done 2 million in a day, in terms of long-form episode streams. So those are really, really big numbers for us, and I think, the fall TV season has really had a huge impact there, and we definitely see that sort of seasonality of traffic where, summer's a bit of a dip, and then when you hit back into the fall, it keeps going. But the nice part is that the dip's never that big, right? We have enough new stuff in the summer, and frankly, our repeats are pretty solid, and that's what people use online for. It's to catch up. It's to watch it again. We're not putting the content up at the same time it's on air. We're not trying to compete with those on-air ratings. We're trying to give people the convenience factor afterwards. So that's really working, and it's working year-round.
Great. So what web-only content are you producing and distributing, and how important is this to your online content strategy?
Yeah, look, I put it in 2 buckets in terms of web-only content. There's content that I call extension and extraction content, which is content that we create based on our television shows, right? So that whether they are extended from or extracted from those shows. And then there is truly web original content, right? Stuff that has never, this is an original concept that we've put out there. The extension and extraction stuff is just our core business. And we're going to do more and more and more of it. It's the way we give depth to our programming and put more of it online. So it's not just the episode, but there are more interactive features. And it's the way we experiment with new formats. We've done things in the social gaming space with Survivor. We've done things in the original video space around Hawaii 5.0. We've done different pieces of different things, and it's just we've done mobile extensions and mobile games like we've done on Big Brother. Even on Big Brother, we have a side subscription service where we allow people to watch the cameras of Big Brother 24/7. You can actually watch the entire thing that's going on while it's happening. A little scary, but it's got a lot of subs, and so. Those sort of extension extraction things are very important to our business and are going to be the depth. But then we're also using the platforms we have, the big audience that we have to distribute new ideas, original things. I think the big one for us this year has been Around the World for Free, which we used one of the talent from Survivor to basically go around the world with no money, and she did a tremendous job. Did it in 100. It was a 100-day shoot. 50-day shoot. I think it was it was a 100-day shoot, 50 episodes. Got that right. And she did a lot of live tweeting, and there was an interactive map to follow her around. I think did tremendous views. I think the sponsor got a lot of value out of it. It was AT&T. That's our third season of that show. We'll definitely do a fourth. So there's definitely original concepts that we're throwing out there, and it's going to be a larger initiative going forward. We haven't determined exactly how big and how much we want to do in that space, but we're working on it now to put together a plan for next year that is bigger than we've done in the past.
So Fox recently said that it was going to impose an 8-day waiting window on new Fox content that appears, for users that cannot prove a cable TV or Hulu Plus subscription. So is CBS going to eye something similar? And sort of as a follow-up to that, is more or less of your TV content available to users online versus last year, and why?
All right, so the second one first. Yes, there's more content available this year than last year. The answer there is rights. That I think that I always call the nature of rights in our business a spaghetti mess. Like you have this right on this show and not this right on this show and this one and this, and it's just usually a mess. It's getting better year by year. While we own a bunch of shows, our own studio creates shows for us. We also license stuff from third-party studios, and when you license stuff from third parties, that's where the negotiation on rights happens. We've gotten better and better at that over time, and taken on more of the rights we want, and given them more of the rights that they want, and sort of split the baby in the right ways. So this is the first year where we've had, I think, nearly every show that's on air. I think I can only think of 2, maybe 3 that are on air right now that we do not have some form of streaming right for online. So that's a really good percentage relative to last year when it was probably 5 or 10 shows that we didn't have. So significantly more content, probably helping us break those records that we were talking about. The second piece, or the first piece that you asked about, was Fox's 8-day authentication delay. Look, on authentication in general, our point of view is a little bit different than Fox's. They went over the paywall, having a couple of partners supporting the idea that people could watch the content the day after. We don't think a couple of partners is enough. We don't, unless the entire market is moving there, you're essentially flushing all of the viewership that you could have over those first 8 days down the toilet. So I think some other networks may not feel that window is as valuable as their whatever money they're getting from those distribution affiliates or whatever value they think they could get from those guys. Our view is that we have a very valuable business in selling in the viewership online and selling advertising against that viewership, and we're not going to put that in jeopardy we're not going to put it in jeopardy at all, and we're only going to put that stuff behind a paywall when we feel that the model for the consumer is legitimate and that they could actually go watch that content that way, and therefore the traffic wouldn't take some just huge dip and we wouldn't lose that business. So I don't want to say how far away we are from that, or we may never get there, but it's certainly not any time in the near future. It's probably a little farther off than what most other people think.
Given the what did you call it, a spaghetti mess of rights?
Spaghetti mess of rights.
The spaghetti mess of rights. Is that going to? I mean, is that something that you can bring to your bosses and say, maybe we should be doing more online content, or producing more original?
That was like my third day. I was like, wow, we got to have more rights to this stuff. No, definitely something we talk about all the time. They understand it. But look, I mean, the big issue we face is that still relative to the overall pie that CBS makes from its broadcast content, we're tiny, right? And it's still small, but it's growing really fast. So I think what's great about the executives at our companies, they get that it's going to be a meaningful part of the business going forward. But we also have to understand where we fit in the scheme of things. I mean, we make billions of dollars selling on-air advertising, and we make hundreds of millions selling online advertising. So we have to recognize where we fit in that pecking order, and that sometimes fighting over that last right on that last show is just not worth it from an overall perspective. But we try to stick to more policy-based things. Like, it's our policy to have the streaming rights to those shows. It's not a debatable position in most cases anymore. Frankly, only 2 or 3. So I think we're getting there. I think we're probably only a couple years away to having a less of a spaghetti mess. Maybe it's a lasagna mess or something. I don't know. It's a little different.
So online, who do you consider to be your key competitors today? And the other networks or Facebook or who's competing for time?
Yeah. So I look at that in 2 vectors. There's competition for the user and there's competition for the ad dollar, right? So competition for the user, there's a lot of things we're competing with, right? It's not just the other broadcast networks or cable networks or television companies. It's movies. It's Facebook time. It's everything, right? So the good part, I don't know how good it is for our population overall, but it's good for us that more people are watching more television these days, or it's been at least flat. I think is the worst it's gotten over the past few years. So it's some incredible number, like 8 or 9 hours a day, which still I don't know where they get the time. But and look, an online viewership's growing, so that's good for us. So I think there's more pie to have and more pie to divide up. So on the user basis, it's a broad set of competitors, and we want to compete on really high quality content and a great delivery of that content, and try to give people as much flexibility with watching it as we can without jeopardizing the other models that we have. I think on the competition for the ad dollar, look, I kind of like to divide the market up into 3 buckets on that front, at least in the video market, which is where we predominantly compete. You have I'll put them on the low end of the spectrum as ad networks, right, where they're cobbling together a lot of varied inventory, as I would call it, and you're getting a mixed bag of delivery and CPMs. In the middle, I would put YouTube as the sole possessor of the middle category, which is they're just so big, you have to pay attention to them. 16 billion video views a month. There's 170 million uniques. It's just monstrous. But like, what's in it, right? You don't really, sometimes you're getting a premium thing, sometimes you're not. We're a partner with YouTube, so our content, none of our long form stuff, but some of our clips and stuff is on there, and we get value out of that as well. So they're in the middle, sort of sucking up a mixed bag of stuff. And then there's the premium guys. And where I like to position us, and the premium guys includes all of the broadcast networks, I would say some other, professional producers of content that fit into those similar buckets, big media companies. They're not necessarily broadcast networks. MTV fits there, those kind of things. Yep. And Hulu as a distributor, us competing against them. But what's interesting about that is that and I think Yahoo and AOL and Microsoft like to position themselves in that bucket, and they are, if I'm breaking it into 3, but I probably take that premium bucket and say there's a sort of, we're putting professionally produced, multi-million-dollar episodes of content online versus, not that stuff. And so I'd say there's sort of a super premium. I don't want to break into 4 categories, but at the top end of that premium category is probably where we sit and where I want us to sit. I think it's the right place. And so as we go out and compete, we're competing with those guys, but we're competing on on the right basis for our stuff.
So you touched on this a little bit already, but CBS claims to have the largest network of professional content. Can you just take us through what exactly that means?
Yeah, so we have a statement on our website of overall CBS Interactive, which is that we're the largest network of premium provider. We're the largest premium content provider on the web. And I put it in the context of, think about the mergers or acquisitions that CBS has done over the years in Sportsline and in CNET as the 2 core big ones, with some other ones around the edges to create CBS Interactive. Every one of those companies is a content producer, distributor, and then sells advertising against it. Very aligned business models. When you go out and look at the rest of the landscape, it doesn't always fit that way, right? You saw Fox and News Corp by MySpace, which is different, right? You saw Disney go out and buy Playdom, very different business, right? You even see NBC is actually pretty close with Weather Channel and iVillage, although very specific niches inside of it instead of sort of thinking about it as a broad spectrum of content creation, distribution, sales. So when we look at the amount of content we're producing and distributing through that network, and we compare it to any of our competitors or anybody else out there, we do believe we are the largest, premium content provider on the web. Debatable about what each of those words means in comparison, but I think we have a pretty strong case to say that's where we're positioned and have held that strategy for a solid number of years in this space.
So this is the CBS Audience Network, right? So where are you distributing your content through the CBS?
It's everywhere.
Everywhere, all over the web.
It's not on there.
Do you see companies like say like a Netflix or an Amazon? Like, do you see them as like competitive to your business, or?
Both are partners, first of all.
Right.
So
That's what I was getting at.
People like to use that word frenemies. I actually don't think of them as frenemies. I think of them as partners. So let's talk about Amazon. Let's talk about CBS Audience Network first. First of all, we claim to have upwards of 200 partners for the CBS Audience Network. We are on 200 different sites. I'd say that it's 200 different agreements is probably a stretch. A lot of those are, our own affiliate sites are on there as well, and we have 220, affiliate sites out there from the different CBS affiliates. But there's probably a dozen core partners to the CBS Audience Network that make it what it is, right? And those range from YouTube and Yahoo and MSN. We don't have a deal with AOL, but basically everybody else that's got any size in the space, and even some guys that don't have that much size, we have a partnership with them. And that partnership is for us to distribute content on their site and for us to sell the advertising against our content. We do not share that right with anybody, right? It's one thing we've held pretty core to our value is that we are always the ones selling against our content. You can't go buy CBS from anybody else. You can only buy it from us. And that's worked out very well, and obviously we reach a really large audience. So when you talk about competitors to that, I mean, the nice part is that we're kind of distributing our content through a lot of people that would be quote unquote competitors, so they become not competitors because our stuff is there and can be viewed there.
Right.
Now, Amazon is a unique case where we have essentially two partnerships with them. One is an EST partnership, so just like we sell our content day after air for $1.99 an episode on iTunes, we do it on Amazon's service as well. So that's one form of distribution. The other is that we have a subscription deal inside their Amazon Prime service for some deep library content, but we don't put any currently airing content on there, and no even previous seasons of currently airing content. So it's a very limited set that we've licensed to them. That same limited set or a similar limited set is what we've licensed to Netflix of that library content. So again, not competing at all with our day after air on CBS.com content, really only competing with what we do with our library, right? So more competitive with what I would call, cable television or premium cable television networks that would want to license our content. I think that's where those subscription models fit. And so, not foe. Those guys are friend. They're great partners, and we've had a great experience working with them.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about advertising. It's a good topic.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here. So what is the typical ad load for short and long form content on CBS on the entertainment properties that you oversee? Yep. And are you considering upping the video ad load? And what kind of feedback have you received?
We're just going to make it all ads all the time. That's it. The short form, basically, we won't put an ad on anything that's less than 2 minutes, just because putting any 15-second or 30-second ad on something that's a minute long just is an awful user experience. So we won't do that. So 2 minutes or greater, you're going to get a pre-roll on our sites or through our network in the CBS Audience Network. So I think that's pretty standard out there, or at least standard for people that are trying to create a quality user experience. You will get, if you're watching multiple clips in a row, it's either a pre-roll or a post-roll, but you're not going to get like 3 ads in the middle. You're going to get 1 and then at the max 2, depending on how your click path went from one short to another short. Mm-hmm. And it depends on frequency caps and all kinds of other things about the advertising we have on the site at a given time. On a long-form episode of content, obviously depends half-hour, hour content. We're using the standard. So let me get this right. There's typically a pre-roll before any long-form piece of content, just one, and then we're serving the ads in the typical ad breaks. So we're not usually busting through the ad breaks, but we're not serving a full television ad load in the break. The max we're doing is probably a triple, which is, the max you're getting is a minute and a half of ads, and you're not always getting a minute and a half. You're sometimes getting only, 15 seconds, sometimes 30, sometimes 45, sometimes a minute. It'll really depend on, what are we doing with advertisers that month? What are we doing with that piece of content that month? It does vary piece to piece, but we've sort of set the max that we'll do at that minute and a half point, which I think is working well. I mean, we have a lot, our completion rates have been going up and up, not down and down. So clearly the right answer there. And it's, I think the wrong strategy may have been set, whatever it was, 2008, when you started to give consumers one ad per half hour. You're just not training them properly based on the fact that this content is expensive to produce and cannot be supported by one 30-second pre-roll for a half-hour content. It just doesn't make any monetary sense. So keeping it with that standard TV ad load we think works. And look, the great part about online is we view it as not competitive with on-air broadcast. It's competitive with DVR, except you can't skip the ads. And so and the consumers know it and they're fine with it. So it's good for, users get the experience, they come and do it. And for an advertiser, they cannot skip your ad. You're not paying for those skips. You're not paying for those things. You're getting delivery. And we think that's a big advantage.
What about different ad formats? What are you seeing and learning about online advertising? And what are some key takeaways that you'd have for any advertisers, marketers?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, for us, it's about, look, the great part about being big in video is that the video ad units that are out there are pretty easy to understand, right? I mean, there are 15s and 30s, and everybody gets what those are, consumers get what those are, and they work, right? They deliver that branded feel, they deliver that awareness, they deliver all the things that you wanted them to deliver on TV, they deliver the same online. When it comes to sort of broader, more experimental formats, we've had some, the one thing we're trying to do more of is integrate it better into the experience and into the site. So I'll give you a couple examples. One is, we're moving away from 720 by 90s on our site, and we're moving to 970s by 66s because they're just better looking. They don't provide any really significantly less or more real estate. It just looks better on the way a normal viewing window of a site looks today. So it's just a better format to use, and we're trying to do that more. I'll say something like the branded canvas initiative that we did, which is you basically take the video player and you get essentially like a mini website that takes over that area. Look, some advertisers, the video wasn't the right answer. It should be an interactive experience. And oh, by the way, we're online and we can interact with it, so let's provide that experience. We found that to be very effective, right? Very effective for the advertiser and no different for the viewer than a video ad, right? Because it's taking up the same amount of time and the same amount of space on their screen. So they don't look at it and go, oh, this is, a popover. It's not a popover. It takes up the same space as that video ad, so they automatically get it. So we found those things to be successful. And I think the other thing we've done is given users a little bit of choice. We've experimented with an ad selector, ASQ, which has worked pretty well for us and the few advertisers that have tried it over the past year, partnering with Viviki. It's essentially the same. Hulu has a similar product, and a couple of guys where there's essentially 3 ads pop up, and you ask the user to choose their pre-roll instead of just getting a pre-roll delivered. And when the user chooses, look, we have very little drop off from our pre-rolls in the first place, right? So you're in the 90+ percentile range anyway. We saw actually significant uptick in terms of people sticking through the pre-roll and watching the long form content with the selector. So when you give them that choice, they actually stick around. They got lift in awareness, they got lift in all the key stats. But what's great about that is if you think about it, it's like, well, wait, if it improves the user sticking around through the ad and watching our content, that's beneficial for CBS. And if they watch the ad and they have a better, feeling about the ad and awareness factor, that's better for the brand. It's like rarely do you find that unique competition where the unique combination where both things are hitting in that same stride, right? Where the advertiser gets a benefit and the content provider. Typically, it's one or the other. Or you're making some trade-offs. There's no trade there. It's a really good answer. So we've had a few advertisers and Darden and B of A and Allstate sort of step up and use that product, and it's worked pretty well. So there's a couple things out there. We're experimenting with that stuff, but we find video to be the most effective, and it's really a great branding vehicle, and it works a lot better than most of the other formats out there. So we feel pretty lucky and well positioned to be in the right space.
Great. Great, Mark. Thank you. Maybe we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if there are any. Back there.
Hi, I'm Zach Coles from Trigit. So there was a conversation earlier about GRPs, and you guys obviously sell a lot in your offline world with GRPs. What do you feel about that, selling it online?
I mean, you're referring to C3 essentially, like putting the TV ad load online?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about like when you sell digital ads, digital video ads, using a GRP to sell it and price it and manage it for the buyers.
Well, Nielsen doesn't measure it yet, so we can't really sell it on a Nielsen measured GRP basis at this point. Not even the rumor, the announcement is that that's coming in C3. Look, I mean, our point of view is our online sales model is working right now, so we don't see any reason to change it or swap out those ads for that reason. And while we do sell a significant amount of advertising on air the one way and online a different way, as it'll evolve, right? Either it'll evolve or people will demand it of us, or it won't, and we're prepared to do whatever the market tells us to do. But I also don't love the idea of sort of a Nielsen measurement telling us how to run our business, right? I mean, it's sort of we should run the business the way we want to run it, the way we can best run our business. And frankly, the CPMs for online advertising, because of the scarcity of inventory and things, are higher. So it doesn't behoove us to make that switch, tomorrow. Although I think we're going to be very open to the way the market, nudges us or pushes us to go.
Oh, I got a question in the back. Hi, Wayne.
What do you think about NBC's decision to sort of abandon, sort of the point that we were making earlier about their decision to abandon all the original series they were doing? They had a pretty big investment in it, and they did about 12 of them or so, and they're the ones most aggressive. Obviously, you talked about some of the extensions you were doing with Big Brother, and you seem to be taking more of a cautious approach. Is that what's going on at CBS?
That's a bummer for Cameron and NBC, because I thought it was a pretty good initiative. Although I would say that was really branded entertainment versus truly original. I mean, it was all original content. I don't want to downplay the goodness or badness of the content, but everything they were doing there, everything he had to do had to be sold in advance, right? So that's the creative goes a certain way when you have that criteria. We've essentially been operating under a similar criteria. We predominantly only do things that are sold, that are truly original. I think we have some mindset to do some different things there. We don't have a full plan or anything to announce yet, but we're definitely looking at that space pretty hard and figuring out where we want to go. The one thing I will say is that on the extensions and extractions from our current shows, that's, I think, an even different business, right? I mean, that is core. That is something we have to do and will continue to do. That will include original video series that sometimes are perceived to be quote unquote, original, even though they're, offshoots of a show. But we're talking about truly original stuff. I mean, we want to find some successful properties. We've been very successful with Around the World for Free. I love that concept. We're going to be looking for more of those types of things. And yeah, but look, I mean, AT&T is a big sponsor of that. It's I wouldn't call that branded entertainment, but they're a big important part of that show. But again, sort of building the brands into the show from day one, we can do that. There are definitely opportunities to do that as long as the content's good, and we may not do that. So I want to keep an open mind to that, and we don't view it as this. I think it may be more organic for us, right? We're going to find the right opportunities and execute them through my team, rather than, maybe staff a specific team against making sure that we do 10 a year and those kinds of things. So. Maybe a little different approach than they had, and maybe that's why they're where they are.
Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time. So I'd like to thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this.
Yeah.
Pleasure.